The city is inviting some new ideas for slowing traffic on residential streets. The Neighborhood Slow Streets program is part of Mayor Walsh's Vision Zero campaign. It also coincides with the slower default speed limit that took effect last month. To tell us about the program are two guests from the Boston Transportation Department, the Active Transportation Director, Stefanie Seskin, and Senior Engineer Angela Wilhelm. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Stefanie. Talk about the purpose of this slowing down.
Sure. So, for years, I think residents have been asking, what can we do on our local streets? We see you rebuilding some of these main thoroughfares in the city, but on our streets, we're concerned about people going too fast, that our kids don't feel safe, playing in the street, riding bikes as a family. And so with this program, what we hope to do is really slow down people who are driving through our neighborhoods and provide that increased quality of life that our residents want.
Angela, when you slow down traffic or calm the traffic, what does that mean?
Well, typically we're doing small changes to the street that really give drivers cues that this isn't the type of street that you're just going to go through more quickly. So a lot of times it's pavement markings, signs, changes to the lane widths, and other small things that give drivers those cues and clues as they're going through the neighborhood.
And I know sometimes you've got bumps in the road too, that's right?
That's right. So on some streets, it may also be appropriate to do speed humps, or what some people know as speed tables, to make the difference that people don't feel comfortable driving faster on those roadways.
Stefanie, do we know about how this has worked, maybe in cities around the country? Does it make any difference?
It does make a difference, certainly. Before I moved to Boston, I lived in Chicago, and my street had speed humps on it. And there was actually a time when they had milled and overlaid our streets. They took out the speed humps, and you could tell the difference when it was flat versus when those humps went back in. Certainly people were going much slower. There's a little more care, I think, as people came down the residential streets that, I need to watch out for things that are going to be happening, rather than this is a great shortcut to get around that intersection that I don't like.
I want to ask you, Angela, about how people might know that they live on a street where things used to need to be slowed down. I mean, I used to live on a street. It was very straight. It wasn't a main street, but I always remember that when cars went down, I could hear them just accelerating it because they knew they wouldn't have to stop for a while. I guess that's one thing that people might look for then.
Well, a big component of this is the neighborhood input. So, like you said, how does someone know if they live on that street? It's really about how they feel in their neighborhood, and if their neighbors all get together and agree that they'd like to see some changes on that street. There may be locations where you have that feeling or that perception of how people are driving on your street, but your neighbor may disagree because that's their quickest way to get to work. So we really want to work with neighborhoods who are all interested in seeing these changes in their area.
And Stefanie, this is not just anecdotal. The city's going to look at data and what's been happening.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think a lot of other cities have done research to show what the actual reduction in speed is when they go over speed humps. We, with our pilot neighborhoods, have done before studies already of what are the average speeds on these streets on different days and different times. And then once we make the changes, we're going to do the same thing and see, how successful were we in achieving these goals. And if we felt we needed to make additional changes, we can. And if we have achieved the goals, then awesome.
Angela, what should people be doing if they want to do something about their street? What are the best steps? Because I know there's a formal application, but maybe there are some things they should do before that too.
Sure. Actually, I might pass that one over to Stefanie, because she oversees the whole program and the application process and the selection process for those neighborhoods. She can probably give some tips.
So, well, as Angela said, definitely talk with your neighbors. That's the first thing. This program is really meant to be a grassroots effort so that we hear what people want rather than we come in and say, well, our official studies, and push our glasses up and say this is what the thing is. So it's definitely a lot of talking with your neighbors. I've asked for people to just show me a strong support. So that could be through getting letters from various elected officials or community officials, people who are really involved in the neighborhood, nonprofit organizations. Try to get, you could do a petition if you wanted to show what the demand is, make a presentation to the neighborhood association, really try to clarify, what are the challenges that the neighborhood agrees are happening here. And instead of necessarily coming up with solutions, just saying, these are the things that we want to focus on to fix. And then when they apply, And if they're accepted into the program, that's where I start. It's like, okay, great, you've said these are the 3 top things. Here's what I think that we can do. Let's take a walk and see what's happening.
Angela, I think another problem that people might have to contend with is crosswalks where the drivers don't stop very much. Sometimes you put a little figure in the street. Is that something that people should be thinking about too, as a way to deal with traffic?
Sure, there are some locations where a raised crossing might make sense, but really it comes back to us looking at what those problems are, as Stefanie mentioned, and trying to find the right solutions to those locations. So there may be locations where a concern is that drivers aren't yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk. So one of the tools might be a pedestrian delineator, as we call it, the sign that we put in the middle of the road to let drivers know the state law, remind them that you have to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. At other locations, we might consider a raised crossing. So it's almost like a speed table where drivers have to physically go up and then over the crosswalk, and that provides more of a traffic calming effect as well on that street.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Stefanie Seskin and Angela Wilhelm from the Boston Transportation Department. Stefanie, I know you're also concerned about biking around the city. Does that come into play with any of this potentially?
Yeah, certainly. I think one of our goals is eventually to have done enough neighborhoods where you have a nice traffic calmed bicycling route. That doesn't mean you have to go on the major streets all the time, so that you can get from the neighborhood, continue through, look at houses, look at trees, feel comfortable, and be able to take your kids with you. And if you're less confident, that's a great route for you to take, and you don't have to deal with the cars. And
finally, Stefanie, we should mention, if people want to get more details on the application process, what's the best way to find that?
Sure. Go online, boston.gov/transportation.
Thank you both very much, Stefanie Seskin and Angela Wilhelm from the Boston Transportation Department. Up ahead, exploring the joys of watercolor. We'll tell you about an exhibit in the Back Bay, but first, this message.